I want to turn now to Hannah Weisfeld, who's the director of Yachad. It's a British Jewish organisation whose primary goal is to work towards a peaceful resolution between Israelis and Palestinians as a whole. Welcome. Can I ask you first of all to reflect on what we've just heard? Here is somebody who's been through great pain and is still trying to reach out. It's pretty rare in this situation at the moment.
Yeah, and I have to say, I know Israel-Dean, and I'm really pleased that you've put him on this programme, because there are so few spaces now where you hear voices like his. And we brought him maybe 5 or 6 years ago to speak to our supporters in the British Jewish community, basically with that message. And for him to have experienced what he experienced and the trauma and the pain, to be able to rise above it and say, you know, we have to build on this and we have to build a better future, and that we have to see people as human beings, which right now nobody is doing. Yeah. I think is really the message that we need to elevate, and it's really good that he is getting a platform to do that.
So I think Yachad is in favour of a two-state solution.
Yeah.
And yet everybody I talk to, all the quotes clever people, say that's completely impossible. It'll never happen now. There's too much hatred. There's too much anger on both sides. It's just off the table. If it's off the table, there is no solution, is there?
Well, what's the alternative? So the alternative is either the status quo, which has brought us this horrendous 2 weeks that we've just lived through with, so much bloodshed and so much hate, or a one state. Quite frankly, the idea that we could have one state when we have seen what's just happened is totally kind of absurd. And so, it's going to be very difficult. But I think that, at the moment, and understandably, all eyes are focused on how do we alleviate the kind of immediate situation? How do we de-escalate? How do we kind of, make sure that we do not have a total humanitarian crisis in Gaza and Israel can defend its borders? And that is not an easy calculation. But actually, the long-term thinking needs to start now, because really, the international community has failed the Israelis and the Palestinians. We've had 30 years of empty, hollow statements. Israel builds settlements and it gets condemned. Palestinians don't hold elections and it gets condemned. And, not that any of these things justify or necessarily explain what's just happened. They don't. However, that lack of global inaction has created a status quo, which has resulted in the situation we're now in.
And so how do you feel about the fact that we're all driven to these extraordinary binaries at the moment? Either you stand with Hamas or you stand with Netanyahu. And the vast majority of people, I suspect, regard that as an absolutely clinically insane choice.
Well, it's totally ridiculous. So this is the debate that we have every day inside the Jewish community, which is, how do you, as a British Jew, and I should be clear that I think the British Jewish community here in this country and around the world is reeling from what happened, but we need to be able to get behind voices in the region that are calling for a different future, which means that raising a Palestinian flag does not equal support for Hamas. Supporting the Palestinians does not equal support for Hamas. Equally, recognising that the atrocities and the war crimes that Hamas has committed against Israel does not mean that you're necessarily supporting the actions of the Israeli government. And that we have to move forward on that basis.
And tell me a little bit about the atmosphere as you feel it at the moment in the Jewish community in Britain.
Well, people are scared. And I have to say, for the first time ever, I am quite fearful. It's not a straightforward decision to send your kid on a Sunday morning, as I do, into a synagogue. And in our synagogue, they've said they're keeping the children inside because it's actually too dangerous to keep them out, to let them play outside. And that makes you think twice. But I do think that there are lots of voices right now in the media and, most definitely on social media that are capitalising on that and making it much worse for people. That we have to get voices of moderation out there who can lower the tone, as opposed to people who look at the situation and think this is a great opportunity to divide people further.
Which is precisely why we've had you on the show, Hannah. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to me. Much appreciated.